world of visual effects is just mind-blowing. It's like what you can do is just extraordinary. On this movie, we are unbelievably lucky to have been working with John Dykstra. Lucky on so many levels because he's wildly talented, he's incredibly nice, but mainly he made Star Wars. So it's kind of like, actually, he could be really shit and really unpleasant, and I'd still be really happy.
John Dykstra is the unsung hero of X-Men First Class. We never could have made this movie without him. We never could have made this movie on time without him. I mean, John is such a pro and is so creative that he would just start coming up with all the ideas.
I actually couldn't have made this film without John because it was, as I said, the accelerated process of everything. I had to hand batons over to people. With John, it was a very weird feeling. I didn't know him that well, and I go, here you go. And he took it, and he's meant to run 100 meters. He ran 1,000 meters and gave it back. I was like, wow, well done. So he won my confidence very quickly, and he is pulling off the impossible right now. And, you know, deserves a lot of credit for getting this film made.
Send it across the boat, from the bow to the stern, ripping its way through, tears out the back. Digital has liberated me from the business of being an engineer and the guy on set who says you can't wear blue pants when you're on blue screen. And I get to spend much more time thinking about the design of effects with regard to how they integrate into the story. My experience with Matthew has been that he's allowed me to collaborate on his movie. He's just been very generous and letting me contribute ideas, not so much to the storytelling, although in a way it affects the storytelling, but to the design of the visuals. I'll add a little camera jostle to it, and so what you need to do is
just grip.
Yeah, your reaction to, yeah, exactly. Jesus, we're going into this thing, and then I'll zoom you away.
The great thing with working with John is that you meet some visual effects guys who kind of believe they can do everything. You know, as far as they're concerned, it's kind of like, don't shoot anyone, just shoot green stuff against green and we'll just build it all later. Whereas John's very much a kind of, you know, we can get it in camera, we should get it in camera.
A good example is the way they ended up doing the angel flight at the end of the film for the battle sequence. You know, we thought it was going to be a bunch of green screens with digital doubles flying around and you know, just animating a lot of shots with a bunch of empty plates and kind of building the sequence that way. But you know, they were able to go out there, San Pedro, get these helicopters, hang people under them, and fly them around. It looked like Top Gun. I mean, it looked amazing. And we were just, in the end, we just had to kind of paint out some of the rigging and add wings and banshee effects and things like that. But the look was so much more realistic, and it allowed them to cut something together that didn't feel mechanical, I feel, too.
Nobody makes a movie by themselves anymore. I had so many people working with me. We had Greg from Rhythm and Hues, we had Jay from Digital Domain, we had Guy from Weta, and those guys literally took a huge amount of that day-to-day work off of my plate.
They all respect him so much, and he had a great dialogue with them. By the time he would show us anything for our approval, he had gone through it 15 times and made changes. There was hardly anything for us to tweak before we finalized it. He's that good. He's so good.
I have to chalk it up to the actors to be able to kind of pretend that these things are happening to them. You know, for instance, Angel behind us. And she didn't have anything on her back except 2 dots, you know, 2 dots so we could kind of triangulate later and figure out where those wings should go.
We actually started with artwork and dragonfly reference, and then really just trying to get the essence of what a dragonfly wing is and sort of taking out the ugly parts, you know, and we didn't want her to look like an insect.
I think one of the things that helped was John's idea of making it really iridescent, which kind of gave it more of a beautiful quality. And so the iridescence quality changes, so the color kind of moves across them and kind of gives a more spectral range. It added a cute factor, so I think it got to the point where it wasn't creepy.
This was our originally our reference for one of our characters, Emma, who's a diamond girl. And this is cubic zirconium. And what we're curious about this is its density presents a similar index of refraction.
The look of Emma, on paper, it's one of those things that, oh, diamond girl, you just take her scan, her body scan, you know, you put her in a cyber scan, get her outline, and put a glass diamond shader on it, and you're kind of done. One thing it turns into is it's easy to recreate a giant lump of glass that is totally indiscernible from anything. You know, it doesn't really read as a person instantly out of the box.
You know, how large, how small do you get the facets? Because you get too small of facets, it becomes really noisy, and then you can't read her face. If you get too large, she looks more robotic and less diamond. So it was definitely a challenge.
You know, it has to be true refraction, true reflection, and it's very touchy based on what's around her. Because a diamond, what you see is what's you're seeing through her, and then what's on top of that reflection, like a mirror.
How's that for a magic trick?
For the Mystique stuff, the original thing we talked about was trying to keep what worked great about the original stuff. You guys who'd done it previously did such a great job. It was such a clean idea.
I almost feel that the scales are a little more organic and softer in feel. The color transfers onto them rather than sort of a spine growing outward and sort of wiggling and then coming down back onto the skin.
The hair was a bigger thing because on this film she kind of went from Jennifer, who had this voluminous hair in a lot of these scenes, and we had to then go to a short little Mystique hairdo.
The toughest part of this script for me was that the characters' powers were sort of hard to define. When we started out, for a long time, understanding how Shaw exhibited his power was really tough. I mean, the verbal definition is that he absorbs energy, kinetic energy. And what's the image for that?
When we got involved, there was already the idea that the physical manifestation increased Shaw in mass. They wanted to make sure, in our discussions with John Dykstra, that when he's hit, when he absorbs energy, the physical manifestation increases his size, increases his mass. Due to the fact of the type of work we were doing, we had to do a completely full digital Kevin Bacon character.
So for Phantom B, I took images that we got from John Dykstra. We did a little Photoshop comp, and I combined it with some imagery that Lon Chaney made famous in the Phantom of the Opera. This was a Phantom of the Opera mask that I created for Halloween based on the original Lon Chaney makeup design. So the forms that I put in, like from the cheeks, I actually also put into this version.
In most shows, when you're doing a digital double, you're doing one body, one set of hair and everything. Like in this shot just alone, there's 6 bodies, 3 heads, 3 sets of hair, 3 sets of eyebrows. So it's a lot to deal with in one scene.
Having to roto-animate all these characters to go through, I mean, this room does not exist. The only elements that are from the plate are the actual character.
They again shot everything on green screen, and we recreated the mirrors, which basically meant that we have to have the actors in digital form so we can reflect them. Based on witness cameras, we animated their performances they had on set, put them in the same place, we recreated the cameras, and so we let the ray tracer do their thing, and we got the reflections.
Shaw touches Eric and throws him into the wall, and from that point on, we're cracking all the mirrors on impact. We're doing this little distortion type effect. When Shaw's powers kind of release, like it affects the glass a little bit, so the whole room distorts a little bit and warbles.
What started to be more and more tricky is that there's a lot of things that we're used to hiding inside of 3D space because it's not even seen in camera. Here you see his back left, you see Eric Fassbender. I mean, he's doing nothing right now in the footage, so he would have to be an entire digital double there. You see the back of Shaw, you see the side profile, you see the left side profile. And then as this would come together, it's like, how are we supposed to do this? Even things that we would normally just block out, like this pipe hitting him and falls out of frame. Originally, it wouldn't matter, but now it needs to interact with the floor and he has to step over it.
We do a lot of design up front to try and determine what's practical, both in terms of cost and time, to tell the story, because that's really what this is all in service of. The visual effects may be dazzling in and of themselves, but they're useless unless they advance the telling of the story. So what we're in is the process, and the process is continuous, and the process will continue until the film is pried from the director's cold, dead hands.